A blessed day, everyone, and welcome to our discussion of our Grade 9 Arts. Today, we will be having architectural structures during the Western and Classical period. This is still part of our Grade 9 module for our week 6 to 8 of our first quarter. So this will be our last lesson for this first quarter. Let's start with the introduction. This lesson was designed and written with you in mind. It's here to help you master the elements and principles of art style in the Western and Classical arts. The scope of this module permits it to be used in many different language and learning situations. The language used recognizes the diverse vocabulary level of the students. The lessons are arranged to follow the standard sequence of the course. Before we have our discussion, let's have first our activity entitled, "What kind of architecture am I?" So in this part, you'll be identifying what kind of architecture are these pictures. Do you have any idea of what kind of architecture the following pictures are? Correct. This is a temple, a church, and a tomb. We'll be seeing more and learning more about this kind of architecture as we go on this discussion. So let's start with the ancient era, featuring the prehistoric period and the Egyptian period. Let's see what are the featured architecture of this period. Let's start with the prehistoric period. And for this period, our featured architecture is the Stonehenge in Winchester, England, 3100 BC to 2000 BC. Does it look familiar to you? Yes, this is one of the most visited place or view in England. Although it's one of the world's most famous monuments, the prehistoric stone circle known as the Stonehenge remains shrouded in mystery. Built on Salisbury's Plain in Wiltshire, England, Stonehenge was a Druid temple, built by those ancient Celtic pagans as a center for their religious worship. One enduring hypothesis for the Stonehenge's purpose comes from the initial observation, first made by the 18th century scholars, that the monument's entrance faces the rising sun on the day of the summer solstice. Now let's have the elements of arts and principles of arts presented in our architecture. For the elements of arts, we have line. Mostly vertical and horizontal pattern of lines are used, as you can see it, right? And for the principle of arts, we have balance. The distribution of visual weight on either sides of the vertical axis is present. That's why, as you can see, the stone is standing. That was prehistoric architecture. Let's now go to our Egyptian period. For our featured art or featured architecture, we have, of course, the very famous the Pyramids of Giza, 2575 to 2465 BC. Here's how it looks like. This is one of the most famous pyramids in the world, the Pyramid of Giza. The most widely accepted understanding is that it was constructed as a tomb for the king. Pyramids were built for religious purposes. The Egyptians were one of the first civilizations to believe in an afterlife. They believed that a second self called the Ka lives within every human being. When the physical body expired, the Ka enjoyed eternal life. Let's now see the elements of arts present in the Pyramid of Giza. Let's have form. It can be viewed from many sides and it has the pyramid form. For the principle of arts, the unity is present because the bricks used in building the pyramid shows unity that make it stronger. Once again, that's the Pyramid of Giza. Let's now have the classical era featuring the Greek period and the Roman period. And of course, let's start with the Greek architecture or the Greek period. Here is our featured arc. Are you familiar with that? Do you know what is that? Yes, that was the Parthenon Athens of the 447 to 432 BC. The Parthenon is one of the most well-known pieces of ancient Greek architecture. The residents of the Athens constructed the Parthenon at the time when they were at the height of their dominance. The Parthenon was mainly constructed as a temple for the goddess Athena, who was the chief deity worshipped by the residents of Athens. So part of this is Athena, also known as the goddess of wisdom. Let's now have the elements of arts and the principle of arts in this kind of architecture. For the elements of arts, we have lines. Do you notice the different kinds of lines present in this building? Yes, the Ionic rose used shows spiral lines, and most of it also used vertical lines in the Greek rose. And for our principle of art, the pattern, if you can notice, the repetition of the Ionic rose elements are present in this temple. So that was for our Greek period. Let's now proceed to the Roman period. For our featured art, I know you all know this architecture. Am I right? Yes, it is the Colosseum of Rome, 72 to 80 AD. The Colosseum, also named the Flavian Amphitheater, is a large amphitheater in Rome. It was built during the reign of the Flavian emperors as a gift to the Roman people. So these are the Flavian emperors during the time. We have Vespasian, the Titus, and Domitian. One of the most popular purposes of this grand building was the bloody gladiator game. But this building has more than that to draw in the population. Events called Monera, or simply shows, were also planned and performed here. So here is the Colosseum inside. Let's have now the elements and the principle. For the elements, we have the texture. The walls of the Colosseum is rough because it is made from stone bricks. And for our principle of arts, we have the rhythm. The repetition of the Greek rose created the cohesiveness and interest to all overlook of the Colosseum. And now, let's have the medieval era, featuring the Byzantine, the Romanesque, and the Gothic periods. Starting with the Byzantine period. Look at this featured art. Any one of you knows this? Yes, you're right. It is Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, a church of the Holy Wisdom, or the Church of the Divine Wisdom in 537 CE. The Hagia Sophia, whose name means Holy Wisdom, is a domed monument originally built as a cathedral in Constantinople, also known as Istanbul, Turkey now, in the 6th century AD. The Hagia Sophia, originally built as a basilica for the Greek Orthodox Christian Church. However, its function has changed several times in the 7th century since. In its 1,400 years lifespan, it has served as a cathedral, a mosque, and now a museum. That was Hagia Sophia. So this is Hagia Sophia, inside and outside. It's really amazing, right? Let's now have the elements and the principle of arts presented in this architecture. For the elements of arts, of course, we have the colors. The architecture presented shows different colors such as the shade of blue, the gold, the silver, and black. It looks so really good. And for our principles of arts, we have the pattern. Kindly notice the geometric pattern designs in the arcs of the wall. Can you see it? It follows a certain pattern design that makes it look so beautiful. Now, let's witness the beauty of the Romanesque period. If not, it is Castilla de Loire. It's the houses, the Church of Santa Maria. It was built in the late 11th century on the order of the King Sancho Ramirez I of Aragon, on the remains of an old Roman fortress. The castle was used as a royal residence for about 100 years. This early part of the castle contains the primitive chapel, ward well, Tower of the Queen, and the kept Torre de Homenaje. Let's now see the elements and the principles in this tower. For the elements, we have form. The architecture shows different cylindrical form in the structure. There's a lot of cylinder shapes and forms in this architecture. And for our principle, we have the balance. The distribution of visual weight on bricks used in the castle makes it look so tough. That's why it lasted for a lot of years. Gothic Period. Are you familiar with our featured art for our Gothic period? If not, this is what we call the Chartres Cathedral or the Notre Dame de Chartres or the Cathedral of Notre Dame in 1190 and 1220 CE. Chartres has been the important Christian center since at least the 4th century CE when it was the seat of bishops. The cathedral has hosted several famous events such as the coronation of King Henry IV of France and Saint Bernard of Clairvaux famously came here to preach the virtues of joining the Second Crusades. Let's now see the elements of arts and the principle of arts in this architecture. By the way, this is how beautiful the cathedral's interior. For the elements of arts, we have the colors. The stained glass in the cathedral looks so amazing with different shades, primary and secondary colors in it. And for our principle, we have the contrast. The contrast of colors used in the stained glass create a visual interest in the cathedral, especially when the sun rays go through our stained glass. That's all for our discussion about the different architectures of our different periods. Now, it's time for our learning task. For our learning task, here's what you're gonna do. Give the characteristic of the following architectures according to the table below. I bet this will be very easy again for you because it was discussed in our early presentation. So you will be answering this table with the architecture on it, the era, the elements, and the principles. And that's all for our discussion about our grade 9 arts featuring architectural structures during the Western and Classical period. And this is the last week of our first quarter for our arts session. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to be updated with our next videos for our next lesson. And please follow me also with my other accounts in Instagram. So thank you everyone. God bless you and see you once again. Bye-bye.